Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero. Our guest today is Bren Foster. He's an Australian actor who also has earned black belts in Taekwondo, Hapkido, Warangdo, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Of course, that lines him up perfectly for action roles, like his most recent gig playing Chief Petty Officer Wolf Taylor on the TNT drama The Last Ship, or as Roman Hurst in Force of Execution with Steven Seagal, Ving Rhames, and Danny Trejo. But he also did over 100 episodes playing Quinn Hudson on Days of Our Lives. And there's no acting gig that's quite the same grind as a soap opera. It really just goes to show Bren's work ethic, that no matter what the endeavor, he goes in and he goes in hard. And that's what you're going to love about him. He's our guest today, Bren Foster.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hello, this is Bren Foster, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Yes, it's Pete and Pete once again, and we're at one of my favorite places to record. We're at Paty's in Toluca Lake. You guys should check it out. They're great hosts, and we're fortunate to have Bren on. I guess the most recent thing you did was Last Ship, and that's most likely over now. I have to mention the Wolf Pack because they love your character, Chief Petty Officer Wolf. And Judy, who inspired us to set this up, because I don't know if you recall, but she reached out on Twitter, and You're active there, and so am I. And whenever Judy or people who love what people like you do ask, I'm like, hey, let's do it. Let's give them more Bren. Who doesn't get enough Bren?
Well, thanks for talking to me, Pete. The Wolf Pack in particular have been tremendously supportive. After every episode, there's a lot of interaction between them. They love the show. We had a good time doing it. It was a lot of fun tweeting back and forth with a lot of them. And just got to say that it was a memorable experience, and I'm grateful to them for their support. They've constantly showed a lot of love and got nothing but gratitude.
It's a unique thing to television, right? And unique somewhat to your show, right? To have a following like that, an organized fan, social media following in your case. And we hear these stories about sometimes where a show gets canceled or they're thinking about canceling it, but the fans rally sometimes behind a show. I mean, that's more of a modern sort of thinking about how television works, right? The power of your audience, right? And in your case, your actors giving back and, sort of feeding into the people that have supported you. You think that's going to be a trend? Will other shows, you think, adopt an organized fan club like yours, or do you think that your show was kind of unique that way?
I don't think it's unique. I think a lot of shows now have such a strong fan base, and a lot of the shows, they become an integral part of people's lives, and they love it, and they're so connected to it. And sometimes it's hard for them to let go. Most recently, you've probably seen with Game of Thrones, there's been a lot of uproar about, it was rushed, it was this and that. But in all honesty, it had to wrap up at some point. They had to wrap up all the loose ends. They had to bring it to an end. And we got some mixed reviews about The Last Ship. There was a lot of people who absolutely loved it, and there were a lot of people who didn't like it. But when a show comes to an end, I think the audience, part of them subconsciously is just, it's sad that it's over. And they don't quite know how to deal with it. Everything has to get wrapped up in a TV show. It has to come to an end. It has to reach a culmination. So all the cliffhangers, all the pending storylines, once they end, it's like almost a sense of loss for the audience. So some of them react by criticizing, and some of them are like, oh, well, that was great. And it's easy to criticize stuff.
Yeah.
Anyone can criticize stuff. It's a little harder to find what's unique and what's special about stuff. So back to your question about the fans, I think fans do have the power to rally behind shows and save shows sometimes and bring them back for another season. In the case of The Last Ship, it went for 5 seasons, which is a good run, and it rounded out a good series. And I think a lot of the cast on the show were kind of done by the time we got to the 5th season. And that led to it being the end, I think.
Can I just say, is the Wolf Pack, was this is it purely organic, or does cultivating a social media following, is this part of what the network or the showrunners get behind?
No, it was purely organic.
Wow, that's amazing.
It
really.
kind of just it's funny how the name came about. I mean, obviously my character's name was Wolf, but I think the organic process of all the fans coming together, and on my part, I tried to respond to everyone who took the time to write to me. If someone wrote to me, especially when the show was airing and I was on Twitter, I would try to respond, do my best. I couldn't get to everyone because sometimes I just miss them because, during live tweeting sessions, there'd be so many people coming at me. So as I said, I'd try to get to everyone. And I think that was appreciated by the people.
There's no doubt. I just interview with Kevin Hart.
Oh man, that was so good.
And he's an early, I think not only was he an early adopter, but he's the sort of at the very peak of using social media. And I don't want to say use it like there's anything nefarious about it, but optimizing his social media, and everybody wins. So he wins, his fans win. If I see it this way, if you're a producer or a studio looking and you hire Kevin Hart, you get more than just Kevin Hart. You get millions of his followers, and it's very, very powerful. And honestly, you're part of that too. Not quite at the Kevin Hart level, but you've got a massive following.
Yeah, with Twitter during the show, I was quite present, and as I said, would obviously try to get back to everyone. In terms of the broader range with like Instagram and social media, I have phases where sometimes I'll be on it, and then there'll be periods where I'm like, life gets in the way and just I'm really busy doing what I'm doing, and I kind of veer away from it, and then I find, I've got to get back to social media and try and post some, check on who's messaging or reaching out so I can respond back to them. But it is certainly a new avenue where fans can really reach out and get in touch with the people they want to connect with. And yeah, you're right about Kevin Hart. He's fantastic, and he's built his brand to epic proportions through social media, and the followers that he has. It's fantastic in some form, in a lot of forms. It really brings the audience with you.
That ability to maintain your audience, the Bren audience. I guess it doesn't necessarily go into like a Q rating or anything like that at all, but it does. You do bring that packet of attention to whatever project you're going to work on.
Right. Yeah.
Has the entertainment market caught up with that? I mean, obviously, like George Clooney doesn't have to do anything like that. He's grown a massive audience in his own right, but when you curate your own thing, do showrunners see value in that?
You know what? I'm going to be really honest. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I've heard things that when they're casting you now, they'll look at your Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, and they want to know how many followers you have. Does that play a role in the casting process now? To be honest with you, I don't know. Do I think it should play a role in the casting process? No, because you've got some tremendous, talented actors who can really act or who have certain other skills. And then you may have someone who is not quite at that level yet.
Sure.
And then what happens? If they're looking at the followers as a person with the most followers, getting the job over the best person. So, I mean, I think that may be a slight issue because then it's not the best person getting the job. But then again, I don't really know.
Could it be a tiebreaker? Like we have 3 guys that we really think could pull the job off, but man, Bren is just his audience that he brings. He's so great at that. Like, can that be something that makes a difference?
I think then you've got a deciding factor.
Yeah.
You've obviously if you've got 3 guys who are at the same level and you've got one with such a, huge social media following, then I guess, that could be a tiebreaker. It could be a method of that. But to be honest, I've never had a producer or director come to me and say, I like this person because they've got so many followers. I know it's an integral part of society and the industry now. I know that. So I guess, maybe it does play a part, but I'm not aware of anyone who has said, okay, we've cast them because they have so many followers or whatnot.
Actors that start out in a different country and, work their way to Hollywood fascinate me. As an actor myself, it's hard enough to be, sort of born here. I'm actually from New York, but I worked my way out here due to a friend of mine from New York that was acting in New York City, and he's like, I want to be a film actor. I want to be in Hollywood. So he moved out here, and he encouraged me to do the same and introduced me to the business. It's so competitive. It's so challenging. And then I've got many wonderful friends from Australia and England and Germany. And one of the first things I sort of think about first of all, I think about, you talk about really doubling down on a belief in yourself that you're going to move across the world to Hollywood to pursue your passion. So much respect for that. And then once you get here, I think of it in reverse. What if I went to Australia? By the way, do any Americans go to Australia for acting work?
There's a few there, actually. We've got a few Americans that actually they went out to study at one of the drama schools in Australia, and they've stayed. And they're quite prolific on the theatre circuit at the moment.
Okay.
They're classically, they went to one of the proper, university drama schools, so they're classically trained, and they've done really well in the theatre circuits. Not so much film and television. Most of the time, if an Australian does well in the film and television out in Australia, they generally make the move here. My situation was a little bit different because of the martial arts background that I had. I was self-taping for some projects over in Australia because my agent in Australia was actually American. Yeah, so when I got out of drama school, I signed with this agent, and he had just literally got to Sydney 2 days ago. So I signed with him after 2 days and after graduating from drama school. And as I said, was self-taping, had a US manager who was already representing me while I was in Australia, and that I'd already done the original Fight Science movie-length feature documentary. A little bit after that, they wanted to do a Fight Science series with episodes. So National Geographic and Base Productions, they reached out and they brought me over to the States. At that point, the manager put his hand up and said, I'll sponsor you, get you an O1 visa. So I didn't just come without anything. I came with a job straight into an O1 visa. So I kind of hit the ground running when I was here. Shortly after that, ended up on Days of Our Lives, which was good, helped me get my green card. And then it's kind of just been going from there.
That's an outstanding plan. And it all, some of it you planned, some of it I didn't realize, because I watched that series. I think I watched every episode of the Fight Science.
I thought you were going to say Days of Our Lives. I'm just kidding, man.
And I thought it was kind of brilliant and really, really thoughtful.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you went in there, you're fighting guys, right? And it was real. It was like, wow, this is such a legit bit of entertainment. And it was that, as an athlete myself, this was sort of a beautiful intersection of a reality sort of TV show, a documentary, and real sport at the highest level.
Yeah.
Wow, how nice. It was great. I didn't realize it was a movie or a documentary previous to being a series.
Yeah, there was a feature-length documentary.
Oh,
that was just over 2 hours, and had some greats in there: Dan Inosato, Hickson Gracie, Sensei Obata, myself, Alex Wynn, and a few more. So we all got to showcase certain areas that we specialized in at the time. So it was good. It was good. We got to put our martial arts to the test against science, and there'd never been any kind of definitive testing like this done before. So you might throw a kick or a punch, and yeah, that's pretty powerful. Normally you'd break boards or bricks to measure the power. But we had like crash test dummies and the highest level of science behind it. So we were testing speed, we were testing power, we were testing reaction time. But if you go and look at some of the numbers that were generated, and in more recent times, there's been a lot of UFC fighters getting speed tests and reaction tests and stuff like that. And if you go back and look at the numbers in the original documentary, you're going to see that a lot of the UFC fighters, their reaction times, their power tests, they're not as good as some of the stuff that was in the original documentary.
Huh.
Okay. So I think it's one people should go back and really have a look at it.
Yeah.
Check it out. There's some really informative stuff in there.
Yeah, the way that baseball is looking at the details of like the specific parts of the game.
Yeah.
Like spin rate of a pitch and what that equates to in terms of the batter's ability to hit the ball. Like there's micro differences, but at the elite level, that's the difference between winning and losing. A lot are controlling for wins and loses.
You know what? I went to my first ever baseball game.
Did you really?
Just last week, I watched the Dodgers play. Right up the front, like second row in the dugout. and it was awesome.
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
Glad you
I just wanted to see a home run. I didn't get to see a home run, but I was just waiting for someone to just whack.
Yeah. Why was it
good.
awesome?
Just being there, and you don't look. You can watch it on TV. It's a bit boring, to be honest with you. But there, just the music, everyone standing up, singing the "Take Me Back to the Ball Game" song, which I love very much. And just I had some mates there with me. We were right at the front, watching the batters go for it, watching that ball just fly past, and it was good. It was great. You know, I got a little bobblehead ball, brought that home, gave it to my daughter, so she's
Max
been running
Muncy?
around with it. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one, man.
I should do a shout out for DJ Severe, who's been on the show a couple of times
Right.
and is the DJ for the Dodger Stadium
Right,
and absolutely rocks the house.
Yeah.
He is easily one of the best, if not the best, major league DJs. So when you sit in a game like that, how does that compare to like Australian rules football or rugby or the sports that you guys aren't really into cricket down there, are you?
Cricket.
Yeah.
Australians love cricket.
Oh, really? Okay.
Not me.
Really?
Yeah, I can't watch cricket. It's a little bit too slow, you know? Yeah, a bit too slow for me. But the baseball was good. The music, the kind of atmosphere that's created, I think that was half the fun. Australian rules football, that's a good game. I enjoy that. I recently, well, not recently, but the last game that I went to in Australia was an Australian rules football game, and I went with a mate of mine, Lee, and we were in a nice little section, so we got to watch the game up close. That was great. That was fun. I do think, however, I enjoyed the baseball a bit more, maybe because of the atmosphere, the music, and everything like that. So it was good. I enjoyed it.
When you got to the United States and you made a pretty fast segue into the world of the soap opera, Days of Our Lives.
Yeah.
We interviewed an old friend of mine, Lorenzo Lamas,
Right.
who, boy, his career has had it's had more than a career arc. It's had like, these valleys and mountains and of all these different things that he's done. And he spent few things get him sort of more excitable than talking about the 2 years he spent working in daytime drama. And just to, sort of encapsulate his experience he said the 2 years that he spent on that show, he walked around 7 days a week with his script in his back pocket because he never stopped memorizing his lines. At the end of it, he said he has probably more respect for the actors and actresses that can go in, day out, month in, month out, year in, year out, with 40 pages of dialogue a day sometime. What was that experience like for you?
I loved my time on Days of Our Lives. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think what Lorenzo is talking about, sometimes you can do, 6 to 8 episodes in a week, okay? And they move very fast. There's no big elaborate action scenes. It's just you and the other person or the other characters. So there's a lot of exposition in the writing and there's a lot of dialogue. Everything you feel is being said. And as I said, there's no big action scenes. There's no nothing. And there's you and the other character. There's 2 cameras. You get one take. Unless you absolutely need another one. So you got to be ready. And especially if it's a big week for your character and you get 8, scripts, full scripts. You read them scripts, you pull your pages, you memorize them. There's a lot. To me, it's a lot like theater because there's so much dialogue and it's all about the language. You haven't got the car chases. You haven't got the big explosions. You haven't got the epic action scenes. So you're there with the other character. So it really works the muscle. And as I said, I really enjoyed my time on there. And it's something that I appreciate very much. So, and it was fun. It was good. The people were good. It was good to have something steady and regular to go to. Yeah. So it was a blessing.
108 episodes, I think it was, that I saw on your credit line. Is that right? Or is it more than that?
I don't know. Is it 180 or 108?
Whatever the number is that a lot? I mean, in that world, because there's thousands.
In that world, no. I mean, because it depends on how long you're on the show for. I was in 2011 and part of 2012. And then the manager at the time really wanted to go in a different direction. So I'm sure there's been people that have been on and off the show. They'll even leave and then come back to it. they've been on there for years and years and years, and I'm sure they would have clocked up thousands upon thousands of episodes. For me, it's not somewhere I wanted to stay.
Sure.
It was good for a brief period of time, and as I said, I really enjoyed it. But I had my eye on different horizons and different avenues that I wanted to explore as well.
I mean, I know you're a professional and everything, but at 100+ episodes, do you have it down, or you're like, man, I'm still, because it seems like you're jumping into a well-established, multi-decade-old system. Like you, as a freshman NFL player, it's like everybody here is fast. So had you like, I've got this is not a problem, or were you still on the learning curve part, do you think, as towards the end?
No, I think I had it down. I came from I was classically trained as an actor from drama school in Australia at the University of Western Sydney Theatre Nepean, it was known as. And it's something that I'm constantly exploring with acting training, because there's so many different methods and whatnot. So I think after, obviously you get in there, everything's fresh, everything's new, and you're learning the ropes. But I think after a few weeks, I was good.
Had it down.
Yeah, I've been, as an actor, I've been that drop-in guy, a couple of days here, a couple of days there on daytime stuff. And one thing I noticed is each show has its own sort of a culture. And daytime moves in a very systematic way, the way they shoot throughout I worked on Bold and the Beautiful.
Nice.
Right, so it was last year. I just had a day on it. And it's very, very structured.
Yeah.
No doubt. You could offer and compare and contrast that for us. I think it's interesting to where you're working on as a series regular in a 1 hour drama, not a daytime drama, The Last Ship. And can you sort of compare and contrast the cultures and that work environment as an actor?
Daytime, as you said, it's very structured. And it has to be, because as I said, they're doing like 6 to 8 episodes a week. So they've got to be structured. They've got to have their stuff down and move at a pace and get everything in. The Last Ship, being a series regular on The Last Ship, we would do one episode would take about 2 weeks. So can you see the difference there? In Days of Our Lives, you're doing one episode in 1 day, sometimes 1.5. And then The Last Ship, you've got 2 weeks to do an episode. But that being said, you've got the big epic action scenes, you've got the fight scenes, you've got the explosions, you've got the stunts. And then you've got to bring it back down and try and find time to have that dialogue and the character development. It's hard, I think, sometimes when it's on an action-based show, you've got so many action elements that are incorporated that sometimes the characters can get a little left behind. And with The Last Ship, there were so many characters. There were so many characters coming in, going out, Death Stars, villains, whatever, that sometimes it did feel like the main cast, their character development, didn't move along as it should. I'm just kind of repeating what the fans have said on social media. The Wolf Pack in particular, they've always said, we want to know what happened to Wolf's family in Australia. Where did he come from? His family was mentioned in the beginning, but we never got round to exploring that side of him. But because there's a pendulum and it's got to swing different ways to different characters, I think they did extremely well being able to bring to life each character as much as they did, with as many characters as they had, and with all the action. So The Last Ship, it compared to daytime, it's on an epic scale, a real epic scale. Yeah, it's just two totally different animals.
When you look at being classically trained, obviously theater is part of it. Do you have an eye to maybe get into that now that Last Ship is sort of seeing its last time? Or
I think the town for theater is obviously New York is the best place for that. But right now, I think I'm just focusing on film and television at the moment, and making sure the next job that comes along, it's going to be something that I feel passionate about. If I'm on there for the next 6 years, which is could potentially happen if it's a successful show, or it could be one season and who knows,
Yeah.
But I'm just really putting out there in the universe that I want something that I'm going to be passionate about. I love going to work. I don't complain about going to work. I love going to work. I love my job as an actor. I don't come in half-baked. I always know my lines. I'm always well prepared. So I do love it. But loving it and then having something that you're absolutely passionate about, that's just, what is that? That's heaven, paradise.
Yeah.
You know?
Without prefacing this by saying, without asking you to reveal anything that you're not comfortable with, every actor, we can agree, I think, that has their own personal way of preparing for a role. And then within that, preparing for the work that you have to do tomorrow, that sort of scene preparation. Could you give us a glimpse inside of the way that you prepare? You've got a scene tomorrow. You've got 6, 7, 8 pages of dialogue.
Right.
And maybe in compare and contrast, I think working on a TV show to perhaps when you're working on a film, where you've got a more, so say, global approach, where you might be preparing that character sort of for weeks or maybe.
All right. If you've got time to explore and you have longer with the character, for me, it's always going to be better, because the better I know the material, the more freer I am to play and explore. But there isn't a separation in the preparation. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go TV or I'm going to go film. First thing, I will read the script. I will write down all the given things, the givens. I'll just read it without judging, trying to put any emotion or any feeling on it or try and interpret what a character's saying. Just the broad given facts about my character, about the scene partners. I'll also do a list of the atmosphere and the stuff that's around. And then I'll do a separate list for others that are in the scene or even that are mentioned in the scene. So then I have a broad spectrum of what's going on. After that, I'll get a little bit closer. I'll do a timeline for that character's life from the time that he's 6 years old. Well, what we realize about humans is, as 6 years old, we have some major influences in our lives, and that's back from that age. So if I can give that character, and it can be from my imagination, it can be from my real life, I'll kind of use a bit of a mixture of both. But then I'll build that whole timeline, and if there's things that I can build in that script, I'll put them in that timeline. Like if the character gets married, I'll do circumstances around that marriage. There'll be a backstory about how he met his wife, and how they got to the marriage. If he ends up going to war and he loses a friend, I'll build a whole relationship with who that friend is, so that when I'm talking about him, it's real. That's a real person I'm talking about. So I'll build a full and complete life about the character. That doesn't matter if it's film or television. I'm going to do the same process for that character and bring him forward. At the end of that, once I know all that, I've given the character a life, a backstory, I'll go back into the actual script and I'll start figuring out actions that he's playing on each line, that he's doing on each line. So he's doing this, and then I'll figure out what the other character's doing back. Once that's all in me, at the end of all that, then I'll learn the lines at the very last moment. At the very last moment, I'll learn the lines. People think, oh, it's lines, lines, lines. But if you know this character and you know everything that's driving him, everything about him, the lines come so much easier. So much easier. And then when I'm on set, guess what? That work's done, I throw it all away. I have to trust that all that work is now in me.
Yeah.
And then if I'm doing a scene with you, Pete, I'm looking at you, guess what? It's about me and you now. All that stuff's in me, and I have to trust that it's there. Now I have to listen to you. No pre-shaped, bullshit.
Yeah. I'm
going to say this line that way. I'm going to say it that way. No, it's about you. And whatever you give me, I have to respond organically and truthfully. Okay? A lot of people, a lot of actors, they do like to pre-shape stuff. I'm going to deliver something that way. But then it's dead. It doesn't allow for anything organic to happen. It doesn't allow for any truthful moments to happen. It would be the same as a boxer saying, all right, well, I'm going to start this fight with a jab. And no matter what happens, I'm just going to jab, 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 throw that jab. The guy goes over there and around his back, and this guy's pre-shaped it to the point where I'm just going to jab, jab. So he's still jabbing in this direction. The opponent's gone over here, hits him in the back of the head. And that's the same when an actor pre-shapes something to the point where they've decided they're going to deliver this line this way, and they're not going to deviate from it, no matter what the other person does. Then you're acting by yourself, aren't you? So back TV, film, I prep the same way, then I throw it out, and then it's all about the other person.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
Reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner,
or at JohnLG69.
at The Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
So back TV, film, I prep the same way, then I throw it out, and then it's all about the other person.
Thank you for that. That's a complete answer, and one I really appreciate. And I know all the actors and people, just the fans of acting and actors, will appreciate that complete answer. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to go back and listen to
Absolutely.
this. And just to be clear, so when you're going back and doing a history and a timeline and of your character, do you put this in a notepad?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Okay, there it is.
Yeah. Do put it in a notepad. I did the timeline too. I did a film just when the last ship finished, hasn't come out yet, in Prague. I literally got A4 pieces of paper and did the timeline big and just put it in my trailer around my room. So whatever scene we were shooting for that day, I would go, okay, that's where we are. This is what's happened before. Okay, good. I'm good. Let's go. I think the timeline's important.
Because, well, I think that's is that in response to, a film can be shot out of order?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's exactly
So you're
why.
orienting yourself.
Yeah.
Got it.
That's exactly why.
Talking about that prep stuff that you did, like that's pretty substantial, and I would like to think that your peers are doing something similar for their own system, but they're preparing. And so, instead of acting by yourself, when I give you this shade of love or anger, whatever it is, like you haven't anticipated what my work is going to be. Like I need to have my acting ability to give you, this is what I came up with. My kid's cat died, and all these other things are in my representation of the character towards you.
Yeah.
And now you have to take what you've put in you and react to that and vice versa. Am I getting this right? Like,
yeah. I can't speak for other people's processes,
right?
But generally when someone turns up, whatever they've used, whatever their process is, once you look at them and once they start to interact with you, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know if there's freedom, if they're willing to play. You'll know if there's going to be somewhere to go with it. I've been across actors where we started and I've gone, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I've been across actors where like, wow, they don't even see me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, it's art, isn't it? It's subjective. Everyone's going to have their own process. I don't discredit anyone's process. If it works for them, that's great. I do like to be organic and spontaneous and in the moment and let things happen that weren't planned to happen, because then that's when it's truly alive.
Yeah.
And the camera, that doesn't lie. That picks up everything.
One of the, he used to be a co-host with the show too, is a guy named Mark Valley. He's an actor. And he talks about like some of the other kinds of conflict that happen as you perform. He's like if you have two people standing side by side walking and they turn a corner, the person on the inside has to turn a little bit more slowly. Otherwise, the guy, if you're walking, for the audience, if you're walking shoulder to shoulder and you're having, like Pete and I are sitting, if I'm making the turn, I have to slow down so that Pete, in blocking terms, isn't like scooting along trying to catch up, right? But if I'm not aware or if I'm trying to fuck with them, I can do that to like just have a little bit of conflict in what's going on, or like someone just clipping just ever so slightly the end of your line, like in a back and forth.
Good. To me, that's good. Clip my line, because you know what? It wasn't meant to happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's an organic, spontaneous thing that's happened. People think, oh, I messed up my line. Oh, this happened. Oh, they cut me off too early. You know what? Good. Do it. I'll keep playing. I'll make something up.
Nice.
I'll make something up and we'll keep going. I remember there's a film called SFV1, The Osiris Child. Great director, Shane Abyss. I played a real kind of messed up character because I actually had to get back for the last ship. So he said to me, Bren, you want to do this role? You'll be here for a couple of weeks. And I go, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we went in and played with my hair, teeth, prosthetic acne scars on my face, and we went for it. And they brought me out, it was a prison scene, they brought me out some food. And I opened the food, there was a hair in the food. So I picked up the hair And I went on this elaborate story about how the warden would come down into the kitchen and put this hair in my food every day just to mess with me. And he filmed it. And it went on for a while. And then he used it in the film. Yeah, yeah. Same thing happened for Alpha Code, the last film I did in Czech. There was a whole bunch of stuff that I was just improvising with, you know. I made this silly joke with my daughter just leading into the scene. But the director, Keone, he flicked the camera on. And I was like, yeah, you know, she was giving me a bit of shit because I couldn't speak Czech. Because my daughter was half Czech in the film. And I said, that's fine. I understand every single word. And I speak 3 languages anyway, English, Australian, and American. You know? And I was mucking around and having a scotch at the same time. He kept all that in too, you know. So a lot of the directors I've worked with, I've done a lot of improvisation. Someone's cut my line off and I've done thank you and I've just gone with it. Or someone's messed up their lines and I've been able to just go somewhere else with it and come back to it. And every single time I've done that, they've kept it in the film. So, yeah, it was good.
I suppose working with a director, you know, that actor-director relationship's always a bit unique. Yeah. And I guess you have to find a bit of a rhythm where maybe how much you're going to be rehearsing or not rehearsing and also make those decisions with the actors you're trading dialogue with. And then it sounds like you had a kind of a special chemistry where maybe you're like a director might say to an actor, you know what, let's just film the rehearsal. And that's an opportunity, right? That gives you freedom.
It does. It gives you freedom. And it does come down to the director too. You have an actor's director and then you have like a very clinical director. And back to what you were saying about the difference between film and television. With the indie film world at the moment, budget's about $5 million or whatnot. The directors will allow you to play a bit more. With television, I feel they're so under the gun to get the episodes in and get the shots, you know, because it costs so much that they've got to get it done. There's not that freedom to play. But with the indie films, the lower budget films, and maybe they do these on the big, you know, $100 million Marvel films too. Actually, I'm sure they do. I know there was a lot of play with the last Thor film. They were able to kind of do a lot of improv. But I think that's the major difference. TV's under the gun. They've got to get their shots. They've got to get their stuff done. Film, especially in the indie world, they'll allow you to play a bit more, make new discoveries. So in the future, I think some of the indie films might, you know, have a lot of the best acting. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe, maybe not.
I know from having a lot of musicians on, a lot of them will talk about the best moments are often, and I'm talking not the lead performer, but the people behind them, the best performances, the best things for them are in practice because you can take chances that don't have to land. You know, like we had Mark Schulman who drums for Pink. Microscopic room for improvisation when Pink's doing her show.
Of course, yeah.
But if you're in the woodshed getting work in, you can take some risks and do some things. And it's like, oh, and you know, you're bouncing back and forth, you know, with your same kind of thing in acting, you think? Or
yeah, when there's no pressure and you're free to explore, you're always going to improve in leaps and bounds. But there are times when, especially with some writers will really want you to honor the written word.
Yeah.
They will. I have been on set where I've deviated a little bit and the writer was quite, no, I want you to say it as it's written exactly. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You have to honor what the writer writes at times. If they don't mind exploration, then great. Then you're free to it. But yeah, that was a good analogy that you used about Pink. I mean, obviously when he's playing with her, there's not a lot of room for movement with him. And that is going to be the same thing with some writers. And as an actor, I guess it's your job to play those notes or play those words truthfully and to the best of your ability and honor what the writer has written. I think I repeated myself like 4 times then, didn't I? I was just thinking about it myself, going in my head, thinking, getting some thoughts in.
What's next?
What's next? I don't know. There's a few things I've auditioned for. It has massive secrecy around it. It was an invitation-only audition, so I was happy to get that. I can't say what it is because of the secrecy around the project. Sure. There's some, with that director I was just talking about, Shane Abyss, there is another film in the pipeline. Hoping at the moment there's a tentative date for that in September.
Nice.
So hoping that comes along. I think they're just sorting out the rest of the cast. They've got a few other cast members. So I think they're just trying to close on that. And that's about it at the moment.
You know, Bren, I have to say that for a young man, your resume is it's well-rounded, right? You have absolutely, succeeded on all the different sort of, checking off all the boxes of stage, episodic, action, daytime, and couple that with the action, the physicality as a champion athlete, and letting people, But it's funny. By no stretch of the imagination, do you being a champion fighter, you're not at all, no pun intended, boxed into that character, are you?
No, I'm not.
That's great. A credit to you.
It is. It is good. But I've had funny things come on either side. I remember I had a producer. I did a movie with Steven Seagal, Ving Rhames, Danny Trejo, myself. And I remember going to Universal Studios to meet with all the producers and all that. And before the meeting, they looked at the resume online or something, and Days of Our Lives come up. No, he's just a soap guy. He can't do martial arts. He can't do any action. What's this? He's a soap guy. So I've had that, thing. And then I've also had, he's a martial arts guy. He can't act, Right. So I've had it from both sides. But I've actually, the martial arts movies, apart from the documentary, there's only been really that one Steven Seagal movie. The Last Ship, he was an SAS soldier that was able to fight. But most of my other films, like Infinity, The Osiris Child, Terminus, even the last one in Prague, AlphaCo, they're not really me fighting, doing martial arts or anything like that. They're more about the characters.
Yeah.
Do I want to do an epic martial arts movie? Yes. But I want it to be with the story and the acting level of something like Warrior. Have you seen that film? But then with the martial arts level of John Wick.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for that to all come together. I think the closest person to kind of, get to that stuff is probably Gavin O'Connor, who did Warrior, who did The Accountant. The John Wick movies are fantastic in terms of the fun level, the adrenaline ride, the action level. They're off the charts. And I enjoy them immensely, but it still doesn't fill the void. It's still not marrying that level with the character development and acting level of what Warrior was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all great films. I just, I love them. I love film. I love television. I watch everything. My favorite martial arts movies are the Raid 1 and 2. Have you seen them?
No.
Now, they're an Indonesian film.
Okay.
There are 2 Indonesian films you have to watch.
The Raid 1?
Raid 1 and 2, R-A-I-D, Raid Redemption, and then there's part 2. The first part of the Raid, it showed at the ArcLight in Hollywood. No known actors, no known directors.
Oh, I love it already.
Not even an English-speaking film.
Nice.
Okay? And to this day, I have never witnessed anything like this. People were standing in the theater at the ArcLight in Hollywood, cheering, and clapping, wow, screaming, go. They were going for it. Even I was getting, pumped up. But there was such a simplicity to their acting. I'm shaking a bit. I'm getting cold here. There was such a simplicity to their acting. It was very simple and it was very earnest. They were very connected. And at the same time, the action, because it was all these Salat guys, so they knew each other's rhythm. And it was brutal. And it just resonated on such a different level to anything we've ever seen before. It was dirty. The fighting was dirty. It was gritty. It was rough. It was violent, yet with really earnest characters. What you'll see with the Chinese in the Hong Kong type thing is very known for their action, but it's very clean. It's very precise. Their movements are very clean. It's very precise. And then they went through the time with all the wire work and stuff like that. And then when the Raid came out, it was gritty. It was dirty, but the rhythm was still there. The space was filled. It wasn't like our Western cinema, the big one punch or the Van Damme area, the big jumping spinning kick. No, the space was filled. the head, the arm, the leg, and then bang, ramming the head into the wall. The whole space was filled up. And we hadn't quite seen that yet to that extent with that grit. But I definitely and highly recommend you see those two films. And the director, even though it was an Indonesian film, was Garrett Evans. And he's a Welshman. And he did a fantastic job. Yeah. Fantastic job. He also did another film. And I did watch it. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Had something to do with witches. It will come to me. Maybe I'll get it back later. But he's a fantastic director. And I'm still waiting for him to actually make his mark in Hollywood, because he filmed the action sequences amazingly. And I think he was able to bring those earnest performances out from the actors. So he's actually one director
I like this expression, fill up the screen.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I just, in all the martial arts films that I've watched, and you've got a great encyclopedia of watching a lot of these films, but I remember in the late 80s going to sold out Friday night and Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
Now, he was like a comet. He was so burning so hot.
Right.
But for about 2 years, and then it got off the rails, and then he's still staggering along, kind of thing. He's iconic, really, but his star was so bright for 2 years, and I just thought of him, and boy, he filled up what's the expression you just?
Yeah, he filled up the screen. In a different way, because he would do the circular motion, a lot of the wrist locks, and that would fill up the screen in a different way because the opponents would be moving through the air. But the way I'm talking about filling up the screen is attacking the legs, attacking the arms, attacking the head, attacking the body, using the full spectrum of the human body and attacking that. Stephen was very good at grabbing and obviously highlighting the style of Aikido. He was an arm breaker, Stephen. And within the Aikido world, exceptional martial artist, outstanding at Aikido. And yeah, he would fill it up in a different way because there's a lot of primary circular motions. And that circular motion would allow the movement to fill up the screen, okay? So that worked well for Stephen, and it was you would be drawn to that. And it was unique because at that time we hadn't seen that before. We hadn't seen Aikido used at that level and used in everyday situations against gun disarming, against knife disarming, against multiple opponents. So it was a unique perspective, and it was refreshing at the time.
And I like the way you laid that out, right? So, and you also spoke to the classic sort of American westerns. That's the straight right hand, and then one guy staggers, and then a left hand to the body. It's right. Then we sort of progressed to Bruce Lee. Yeah, but a powerful striker and kicker, but pretty linear, right?
Bruce Lee was way ahead of his time. And Bruce Lee was very, his original style was Wing Chun, and he developed Jeet Kune Do. And his interpretation of martial arts was do away with the fixed stances, the fixed positions. He was pretty much the grandfather of mixed martial arts because he brought everything together. He knocked down the walls. He said, let's do away with all the, fixed positions, fixed stances, the proclaiming of my style is better than your style, and do whatever works. He was very into intercepting and the straightest and the quickest point and trapping. There's a lot of trapping the arms in his system. He wasn't big on kicking, and I do recall sometimes in some of his work, in his literature, that he stated he wouldn't ever kick higher than the waist. That was also said when UFC first started.
Yeah.
Oh, it's no good kicking in the UFC. And in the evolution of martial arts, I've always been big on kicking and very confident that I can throw my kicks against anyone.
Yeah.
Head height, spinning kicks, I can use them all. And now in the UFC, you're seeing head kicks, you're seeing double jumping, turning kick knockouts, you're seeing spinning kick knockouts, you're seeing axe kick knockouts. All these kicks come from Taekwondo.
Yeah.
They're classic Taekwondo kicks. You see, as I said, the back kicks, the spinning kicks, but they are now allowed to be used because the competitors, they're great at jiu-jitsu, they're great at wrestling, they can box, they've got Muay Thai. So they're very good at all these avenues. Then, if their kicking ability is good, they are able to seamlessly incorporate these and then do this. The biggest thing about kicking is the hardest part of martial arts. Kicking, to be a good kicker, it is the hardest part. There's great boxers, there's great jiu-jitsu guys, there's great wrestlers. How many great kickers are there?
I saw a K1 fight where it's Grand Prix style. So for the audience, everybody fights at least once. And if you win, you advance up to the next round. And you may have 4 fights in the night. And one guy, his thing was the axe kick.
Yeah.
And what it seemed that he could do was he could put his foot above the opponent's head and he could just ever so slightly longer hold it there. So that when you're like, okay, that's not going to happen, and you went to relax, you got your nose smashed with the heel, and it was devastating.
It is a devastating kick, and there was a K1 fighter named Andy Hug. I think he was a Dutch fighter, Dutch kickboxer, absolute beast.
Yeah,
he passed away of cancer. God bless his soul, but he would nail so many people with the axe kick. Like so many people, and he was such a powerhouse. He came from Kyokushinkai Karate. And the Kyokushinkai Karate had a lot of kicking, obviously. They had the leg kick, they had the body kicks, they had the head kicks, the axe kicks, spinning kicks, and he would use them all.
Yeah.
In the UFC today, you're starting to see kickers come out of the woodwork. You're starting to see that. Steve Wonderboy Thompson, great kicker. That's where the evolution will take the UFC. It is the only area that is lacking at the moment. In the UFC, the boxing, high level. The Muay Thai, high level. The wrestling, jiu-jitsu, high level. The only place that is lacking across the board, not all of them, because some of them can kick, is the kicking element. In 10 years' time, there won't be a flaw. There won't be anything that's lacking.
Yeah.
Because you've got these young guys coming up. They're great at jiu-jitsu, they're great at boxing, they're great at Muay Thai, and they're going to have the full arsenal of the Kyokushin and the Taekwondo kicks. They're going to be throwing the spinning kicks, the double turning kicks, everything. And it's going to be seamlessly integrated where those kicks are flying at speeds of where the hands are going and then the kicks are going. And that's where the progression in the next 10 years will head. If you can't kick in the next 10 years in the UFC, you're not going to cut it because you're going to be without one major weapon.
You know, the way you lay out the evolution of fighting in motion pictures, right? So you kind of walk us through it. It's sort of I'm thinking this through. Maybe the fighting that we see in film is representative of the real fighting we can see on TV for entertainment, but a little bit behind. So it takes a little bit longer because I think I've kind of always been the last few years kind of waiting to see a great action, whether Jonathan Statham or some terrific action star, show the more up-to-date version of mixed martial arts on the screen, in a film, in a big film. But it hasn't really happened yet.
I think John Wick does it well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think John Wick does it well. He uses a lot of jiu-jitsu and a lot of judo.
So you're saying Keanu Reeves is on the leading edge of?
Keanu Reeves, he's trained and he's guided through 8711, a great director in Chad, and there's a great stunt team that surrounds Keanu. And what they're putting together some really good judo, jiu-jitsu, some Filipino martial arts in there. So they bring together a really, really good mix. And also they incorporate a lot of the gunplay, which is done very well too. There's some of the lower budget movies. I think there was a good movie recently, Triple Threat, which actually did very well through China, and Jesse Johnson directed that. That had some really good fight scenes in it too. But I still think, you know what, I think you're onto something, Pete. I think there is still room to kind of take stuff to the next level.
And I think you're just the man to take us movie-going audience to the next level. I would love to see that, to marry the right script with your legit background. That'd be great fun.
It would be. But I think it's just got to be the right film. And I haven't said yes to a lot of projects because you get onto the page and it's like F this, F that, and the guy's snarling, and it's like, oh, I'm going to cut your throat, and I will read them, and it's like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to look back in 10 years and look at that film and not be proud of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's very important, the legacy, or what you film is forever. So whatever you do and whatever you leave behind, it's going to be there forever. So I think it's very important that you do things that you're proud of. And with the martial arts world, a lot of scripts have come to me and I've read them, and they lack a little bit of heart and soul. They lack a little bit of humanity, and it's just, it reads as a lot of face pulling and a lot of profanity without anything else apart from punching each other in the face. So I'm holding out for better things to come along. And am I making a mistake? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll look back and think, I wish I did all those films. At least, it would have been a decent paycheck and whatnot. But, would I have been satisfied and proud of it? Probably not. So
that matters, man. I mean, it's your legacy, and that film was perfect for somebody. It's just not perfect for you, And Jack Reacher's out there fighting his style, and I would love to have you find something that matches you. I mean, I'm a fan of, as a combat guy, I want to end the fight as safely, as quickly as possible. So if I can wrap you around the head, I'm not going to guillotine you. I'm just going to drop your face on the ground, and jam my thumb right into the back of your eye socket and just make you want to quit fighting, and get away from you.
And what I love about the Filipino martial arts and the Silat, there is a lot of that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of that. And what I tried to do with Wolf, just I'm going to go there, if you look at his fights,
yeah,
they weren't, I wasn't really doing jumping spinning kicks or 720 spin kicks or, stuff that's thing. I tried to keep it brutal and to the point.
Yeah.
And it was very important that I honored that character that way. And a lot of SAS, Australian soldiers, they do a lot of training with the Indonesians, which is a lot of the Silat stuff and stuff. So I tried to make that, or tried to incorporate that into the fights.
That's great.
I did put some kicks in there, and some. If I did put a flashy kick in there, it was built up to throw it at the appropriate time. There were improvised weapons that we used, and especially the last episode of the last season, that to me was the most brutal fight. He was using the walls, like if he was opening up, bang, bang, he would smash the head into the wall. There was like an arm lock, taking the face, reaching around, stabbing the knife down into the throat.
Yeah.
There was the thing to the end when he had nothing left. He'd been shot in the hip, shot in the breastplate, and stabbed in the shoulder. And he had one person left. So he had to just give everything. I was fortunate enough to be able to, every fight scene that I did, I choreographed myself.
Oh, great.
And I was adamant about that. It had to be me that did it. And even to the last points, the last episode of the last season, I was even allowed to go in with the editor and piece the fight together the way it should be.
Thank you for that, by the way. I can't stand the ones where they're 55,000 jump cuts. Really, you're like, I don't even watch. I'm like, I can't tell what's happening. Someone's getting their ass kicked. I can't watch it. Yeah.
It's so much better. And that's what the Ray.
Yeah.
If you guys check that out, it's pulled back and you get to see everything in its entirety.
That's better.
And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful to watch. You get to see the movement and the effective techniques, and it's really captivating.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we've been at this for an hour, man, and I don't know about you, Pete, but I loved it. It was awesome.
Okay,
Let's see, once we started talking about the martial art thing, you went off like a rocket.
Yeah, I know. I can't start talking about that too much.
Yeah, but thanks. I mean, this is fantastic, and this is what makes this stuff so much fun. So from the Wolfpack, thank you.
My pleasure.
And from Pete and I say thank you, and I'm going to let Pete say whatever he wants to say.
Well, I think that we covered some vast territory, and I really appreciate that. So going from, it's nice, as of all the sports that you might have, pursued in your developmental time in your life, and you chose the martial arts, and, it has a lot of utility in life.
Yeah.
It's a practical thing to study. It's a useful art to study, and you're not the first guy to do it, but you're another guy that's doing it well. Whereas you're marrying it and you've tethered it to your acting, another art, and I appreciate that. And I, for one, after this conversation, will look forward to seeing more of your high-level acting married to your high-level martial arts.
Thank you.
I think the world is I think martial arts movies kind of fits in that category, in my judgment, like the horror movies. The audience never gets sick of the good ones.
That's right. Yeah, I'm with you. They don't.
Yeah, more of it. Let's do that.
A great 2-star horror movie is a great movie. A great 2-star martial art movie can be a great movie. It doesn't have to be, but like you said, with the character thing, man. Again, thank you.
No, it's my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.